Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to episode 142.
We made it.
Here we
As
are.
always, here we are. We're back. We got Ed, we got me, Jason, we got Nathan. We're all part of the teaching team here at Community Christian Church, and we're glad you're joining in with us. We're going to answer another question here in just a few moments. We also have our wonderful producer, Charlie, is right behind that camera.
Charlie's here.
How you doing, Charlie?
Doing great.
He is doing great. We've recorded, this is our third one to record today, and
He is ready to go home.
he's ready to go. He's like, will y'all just get on with it, be done with this thing so I can
He understands why Bill walked out.
leave.
right.
He does.
I've got a Fresca now, so I have some.
he's got a Fresca.
Good
He
for
has
you.
a Fresca.
He's
God
doing all
bless
right.
him. I have a cherry.
Nathan also
Coke.
has a Fresca.
He
I
has
think,
a Fresca.
I think I'm out.
Oh,
And
you're
and I
No, I got a
didn't.
little bit.
I hadn't said this, but someone started putting LaCroix
I
in
don't know.
our
We don't know how
refrigerator
to say
here at
it.
the office.
La Croix.
Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
It's that sparkly water that doesn't have
I
any
can
sugar.
promise you, whether it's in a language he doesn't speak or a language he does speak, he doesn't know how it's supposed to be pronounced.
No.
Sure.
He just says whatever he
La
thinks.
Croix.
It sounds so much better when you say it that way, doesn't it? So yeah, so we got some good drinks these days.
I did
So whoever
have
put
I
that
did
in.
have one of those this week, and it's the Pappelmoose flavor.
I'm sure that's not
That's
how you
probably
say
not
that
how you
either.
say it either, but it was
Pappelmoose.
really tasty. I hear it's supposed to be grapefruit, which I enjoyed.
Okay,
I like a good.
I'm gonna have to
grapefruit.
look that up to see if grapefruit is also called pappelmoose.
That's the way it's on the can, and
Wow.
a person here that I respect their opinion told me that's what that was.
Oh. All right. Well, we will respect their opinion.
Yeah.
So, and
I
we
dare not say their name though.
No.
They would never hear it.
will never. Let's see if folks respect our opinions here in just a
Yeah.
few moments. Like I said last week when I was teasing this episode, that we had a question come in last minute, right before we headed into the studio to record. We record about 2 or 3 at a time. Somebody sent this question in, and it's real straightforward, so I didn't even write it down. I
Oh,
know what it is.
say it.
And so we're going to get after it. It's a little bit controversial, I bet, for some people, but that's okay. We're
Will the
okay.
Braves win the World Series?
I'm going to say no this year.
Okay.
Although
All right.
it's going to,
That's what I'd have said last year.
well, that's what, but you know what? You got a really good chance of being right.
Oh,
because
yeah.
only one team wins.
And it's really hard to repeat.
Really
so that's
hard.
not the question. Go
It's
ahead.
not the question. So we're just going to sit in the controversy here in just a
Okay.
minute. So here we go. The question is, an anonymous question came in right before filming time. Should a disciple of Jesus attend a same-sex wedding?
Well, and my response when Jason originally said that to me, and I'll just say it out loud, was, "Are you invited?
Are you invited
Are
or
you
not?
Invited?
Because if you're not invited, that's easy.
Yeah, it's an easy.
Weddings are expensive, and if they didn't invite you, it's probably
It's
for a
not the
reason.
day where we just say, "Hey, everybody wants to come, come."
Yes.
That's not the way most weddings are.
Yes.
So if you were invited, you probably were carefully curated on their list of people they could afford to invite.
Yes.
At that point, I think, okay, I'll just say for me, the loving thing to do for me, if a person included me on their list and I know how much it cost, is if I can come, I'm probably going.
And for me, the thing I said following up with that is, I think you said the right word, Ed, is what's the loving thing to do?
Right.
And I assume when you ask that question, what you really want to know is, because you know that for me personally, I have determined in my conscience that marriage is between one man and one woman. That's what I biblically and in my conscience have determined for me personally. Doesn't mean that there are other people in my life who I love dearly who have come to a different conclusion.
Right.
Sure.
Even other followers of Jesus that I know
Right.
who have come to another conclusion through their conscience and their study of the scriptures. And so I don't think it is a loving position to take for me to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to attend your wedding as to whether or not I agree with you on every single moral issue that exists in this thing.
Well,
Even if we just take the sexual part of
Yeah.
it, there are certainly heterosexuals that I have known
Yep.
that have been living together for years, which the Bible would say is not the right way to start that relationship.
Exactly.
Having sex, even having children before they're married, and then I get invited to that wedding. And I have gone to those weddings, so I don't know how I could decide to go to those weddings and not go to someone else who I also think, I agree with you, man and woman.
Yes.
I-
Also agree.
All of that kind of, I don't know how I could do that.
Okay, go ahead.
All I was going to say is I think, I would assume the reason you would say maybe, I'm trying to imagine the scenario where I'm close enough to a person that, just because I know several people are getting married right now, and all of them know how expensive it is, how they really have to whittle down the amount of people they invite. So I'm close enough to a person that they would invite me to their wedding, and I'm assuming maybe the reason is because I'm also a person. Well, I personally am, but I mean the person in this would be a person who would say, I believe that marriage is between one man, one woman. I get invited to a same-sex marriage, and I feel like I need to like maybe make a stand or make clear to these people I'm not on the same page. My guess is if you have not already had that conversation, you're close enough and they don't know what you think about the relationship.
Wow.
Today is not the time to have that conversation.
Their wedding day, or even leading up to it, is not
Yes.
the time.
Or
You should have already
they've
had it.
already made clear and they still have chosen to invite you, means that at that point, what would not going do other than to say, I am putting something up between me and you at this point. So at that point, I would also agree. I would attend, because there are other people in my life that I don't think they have a Christian marriage by the nature of they are not believers, and they're people in my life and they invite me to their weddings.
Yep.
And I see marriage as a sacrament that is given by God to the church, that it is a way that we do this. And these are people who are getting married, they're not believers. So it also is not a Christian marriage in that sense, but I would attend the wedding as I love these people. This is an important day in their lives, and I want to be a part of that. So that's my only reason for bringing it up, is if my reason to not go would be to take a stand, this would not be the first day to have that conversation.
Here's what, and I'll play a little hypothetical here just for a second to make a bigger point. If I were a person who said, okay, I disagree with this relationship, with this marriage, I desire for that to change. I really would desire for that to change. Okay, let's say that you're that person. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying you are that. That's your take on it. I want to see this different. Is your protesting by your not showing up, or at least making it known in some kind of public way, your disagreement with that, is that A, going to accomplish your goal of seeing that something change in that relationship? And B, is it truly the most loving thing to do? Because what you've probably done by taking that stand, as you just said, Nathan, if I choose this is the moment I'm going to take my stand, what you have now run the risk of doing is you've probably brought distance in the relationship that you have with this person who loved you enough to invite you. And so now you've created some distance in that, to where you probably have lost a little bit of credibility and a little bit of the right to then have any kind of influence on that person's life. So I think even if you're of that mind, you have probably done the opposite of what you would probably want to do. Again, not saying that that's what I think is the right thing to do, to take that stance on it. So for me,
you're more poking holes in the idea of not going as a.
If you're doing this out of pragmatism,
right?
I think you just did the opposite,
right?
You know, so you're probably not even accomplishing what you want to accomplish. But setting that all aside, I go back to what you both have mentioned, is that I really do. For me, it comes down to what is the loving thing to do that fosters relationship between me and this person, because I think in the end that's what matters over the long term. Whether I ever agree with anybody who gets married and the type of relationship that they have, I think what's most important throughout my lifetime is that we continue to be in a loving relationship with each other.
Yeah.
And I think to take some kind of moral stand in that moment, and it's a very special thing in this person's life, is probably not honoring to them, and I think in the end it's not honoring God.
Well, and it's splitting hairs on a particular sin that you, and I don't say that, I do believe, I again, marriage is between a man and a woman, so I don't want you to take my quotes as saying that I don't think that. I'm just saying, there are all kinds of things when I go to watch people in any kind of ceremony who I love, that we all could go, well, that's not exactly right in their life, and that's not exactly right in their life. So maybe I'm letting them think I think it's okay for them to do
Right.
these wrong things that are going on in their life that God doesn't think it's okay. The other thing I was sitting here thinking, they began the question, should a disciple of Jesus? Well, disciple just means I'm going to learn from Jesus to do what he did. And so I'm sitting here thinking, can I think of an example in Jesus' life where he attended something of a public center that other religious people thought he shouldn't go to?
He went to Zacchaeus' house.
Yeah, he goes
Matthew's
to Zacchaeus,
house.
he goes to Matthew's house. In fact, at Matthew's house, they go, why do you hang out with these public sinners? And he goes, it's not the well that need a physician.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his answer.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to be like my master, I have to think, are there places where there were public sinners that other religious people thought we shouldn't hang out with, that Jesus decided to hang out with? And I go, well, yeah, I can think of those examples.
Absolutely.
And can I think of examples where Jesus decided to make a statement to public sinners to condemn them publicly? I can't. I can think of times where he had private conversations, go and sin no more. And I can think of places where he publicly condemned religious people for their hypocrisy.
Sure.
So, I don't know. It seems pretty clear to me that I think, following in the way of Jesus, if I get invited in today's culture where it is hard to whittle your list down, and by Nathan's criteria, they've already decided they know where I stand because I'm not making my first statement at their wedding.
Yeah. Or they don't know.
Or they don't know.
That's
don't
not
know.
today's not the day
Today's
to have
not
that
the
kind
day.
And if they don't know, and this goes back to last week's podcast when we talked about giving a defense for your faith. If no one has asked you
Right.
to give a defense, then for you to then offer that
Right.
unsolicited
Right.
is also not warranted or loving either.
Yeah. Yeah. You've come in and you wanted to be a witness to them of the way of Jesus, and you either didn't know they were gay, and now you find out, and you don't say anything until the wedding day,
Right.
or about the wedding. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do. You should have that conversation. So let's assume all those things we talked about are true. I think you go, but then again, it is, if you can't do it in faith, if you can't do it with a clean
Sure.
conscience,
That's right.
then the answer is you shouldn't do it.
That's right.
And then you have to have the tough
Yeah.
conversation of why. I just couldn't do it with a clean conscience. I still love
Yeah.
you. There's probably ways you can have that conversation.
In
It's
a
tough,
loving way. Yeah.
Yeah.
but not to make a statement. It's not to
Yes.
make a
Yes.
statement. It's got to be a tough, loving conversation where you say,
Well,
I
that
just,
becomes a difficult, if that is something you feel like as a disciple of Jesus, it is my job to every possible sin or turn away from God's will, I have to publicly call out. That's a tough standard to live by in the majority thing. And I don't even say just in weddings, and not even like, I think in every wedding I go to, I could probably find some reason to stand up and say, well, let me throw this out
well,
there.
and I'll say 20 years ago, maybe a little longer than that, when I first had the first, gay, lesbian people began to talk to me about church and how church treated them and how would we treat them and what could they do. And I would say things, they began to point out to me the hypocrisy of the church around heterosexual couples that weren't living up to the,
Right.
and divorced couples, which the Bible has some things to say about that. And the hypocrisy they pointed out was right.
It's
They
right.
they were crystal clear.
They are.
And so then I had to get really clear on, okay, they are reading the scripture. They're trying to figure things out too. It's not just somebody trying to prove a point. So we have to, if you're going to be the police on one side, that's
Right.
just the way I'll use it. If I'm going to take this one, you really need to be really clear that you're doing it on every kind of place, or then you're really just poking at somebody.
Yeah.
You've decided this person, for whatever reason, because you don't like what they do, is different than other people who clearly are also violating God's standards. That's a tougher thing, but
It is.
I don't know why people, I didn't see it until, again, a very loving person who was in that situation pointed it out to me, and I've been thankful for them since. It has helped me take a speck out of my eye, or a log, whichever one side of that you want to be on, that I did not know was there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we waded into the controversy. We're
I'm
okay.
confident we did not get out of it.
Oh, I'm sure.
I bet we have
And
waded
who
deeper.
knows? We might get other questions out of this. We might get comments. That's fine. And
That's right.
We welcome that. And if there's good criticism that you can point our way, we will
Help us understand better.
and understand it, and we will listen. And I'm not above correction.
Yeah, that's
I don't
right.
think either one of these guys are either.
Yeah.
We're just trying, like I said, I say this at the beginning of every podcast, we're trying to live in our world, think about our world, respond to our world in a Jesus-centered way, and that's what we try to do through everything. And the way of Jesus has to be love above all the other things.
Yeah,
and that's what we're trying to do.
If we're off track, then in community, come bring some correction. Help us understand better. That we're okay with that.
And we'll love you too.
That's exactly right. Let's just have a conversation about it.
That's right. So, all right. So if you have any other things, follow-up questions, anything else, and you never sent us a question, it's in the description. There's a link right there. You click it. You can send it. You can put your name on it if you want, and we'll talk directly to you, or you can just send in a question anonymously. We will always do our best to lovingly answer the questions you guys send. So thanks. Thanks for sending that in. Thanks for entrusting us with that question.
Yep.
That always means a lot to me, at least, when I read a question that I know someone cared enough about to entrust to us to give what God we think God's doing right now within us and within our community and in this world. So thanks for that, and we will see you next week.